Hello, welcome to the Motivational Millennial Podcast, where we talk with inspiring members of the millennial generation who are living life with a sense of purpose and achieving their dreams. I'm Blake Brandis.
And I'm Ivy LeClaire.
Our motivational millennial guest today is JP Sears. JP is an emotional healing coach, YouTuber, author, international teacher, speaker, and world traveler whose work empowers people to live more meaningful lives. JP is the author of How to Be Ultra Spiritual and is very active with his online videos where he encourages healing and growth through his humorous and entertainingly informative videos, including his hit Ultra Spiritual comedy series, which has accumulated over 100 million views. JP, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Blake and Ivy. I appreciate you having me. And the Motivational Millennial Podcast, I'm a sucker for alliterations. So you've sucked me in just through the brilliance of the alliterated title of your show.
Yes.
Well, thank you. We strive for maximum wordplay and terrible puns. So we appreciate that you're already on board.
I think the brilliance of good wordplay is it can completely cover up a complete lack of valuable content. That's my business motto. So let's get ready to deliver zero value to people.
Oh, well, as long as it's a zesty zero, I think that's what really matters.
Well played, my friend.
Should I start asking questions before we just evolve into
maybe
endless puns for the next 30 minutes? Okay. Oh, man. So, JP, tell us a little bit more about what you're up to at the moment and what you love so much about it.
Yeah, well, I think a little bit of the plight of a lot of millennials is I'm up to a lot of things. I think, needless to say, gone are the days where we're just up to one thing. Like, I'm an accountant. That's what I do. So what I do, there's a lot going on. I'm making videos. I had my book come out, a lot of touring with that. I'm doing sponsorships with companies. I've got upcoming tours, upcoming projects. So there's a lot I'm up to. And I would dare say that the most exciting common denominator of the eclecticness that I'm up to is the creative component. I get really excited about creativity, and I'm not super attached to how the creativity is expressed with regard to, is it in the written word, video word, is it on stage, is it a new product or a new t-shirt? Creativity lights me up, and that to me is what makes my work feel like play, not so much work.
You really seem to have a love of language in a lot of the work that you do. I mean, obviously you've written a book, so you must love it enough to put together a book, but just even in terms of the videos, one of the things, aside from your brilliant comedic timing, is just how much you seem to have fun with the language. And is that something that started early for you, or is that just sort of a part of who you are all your life?
I wouldn't say it was early for me, but it's definitely a thing for me. And I think you sniffed that out very well. I think language is something incredibly powerful, and how it's used, it can open up doors of energy, doors of consciousness, doors of consideration, how something's said, the right words we use. It all can really work for us in a better way if we're conscious and have deliberate intent of our language. And I think probably what opened the door of considering language for me, like intentional use of language, is an early mentor I had, a guy named John McMullen. He runs an organization called Journeys of Wisdom. He, for me, is a 10th degree black belt of language. So when I started working with him in my early 20s, I was just like, wow, like listening to this guy speak feels amazing. It's not just poetic and sounding wonderful. There's like an impact where I feel differently. So I'm certainly not out to replicate what he does, but I am out to live my journey of using language as a powerful tool. So I am pretty intentful when I'm writing a video, writing a book, and at least half the time when I'm forming somewhat coherent sentences when I'm talking, I am conscious of the words I'm choosing.
I really appreciate that perspective. It makes me think about the words that I'm choosing. So now I'm speaking more slowly so that I can be aware of the words. I'm really interested to hear about the origin story of how to be ultra spiritual and the ultra spiritual comedy series.
Yeah, the origin story. I feel like this should be a sort of a superhero journey. Like I was bit by a spider, and then Uncle Ben told me, "With great power comes great responsibility."
Ultra spiritual spider.
Yeah, and like it took me so long to figure out how to channel my power and use it for good, not evil. But I would say that honestly, the origin story would begin back in my childhood. And this would be the comedic aspect of the origins. I used comedy to deal with pain. I would try to make people laugh so that I could feel temporarily significant, so that I could escape my inner sense of insignificance for a few minutes. Make someone laugh. I feel significant. Therefore, I don't feel as insignificant as I actually feel inside. And because the gratification of that would only last a few minutes, it would compel me to do a lot of repetitions of trying to make people laugh, because it's not a cure-all. It's just like a temporary cover-up. So I got a lot of repetitions of doing my best and learning along the way how to read people to figure out what material needs to be said to make them laugh. And then the second part of the education was working on the delivery. So out of my neediness to deny my own pain, I started sharpening the sword of my humor. And then I think the second dimension of the origin story is probably in my early 20s, when I started my quote unquote spiritual journey, working on my heart, working on embracing myself. That got me into, I would say, the underworkings of the human psyche and what happens in the human heart. And then fast forward about 13 years later, I married the two together, the comedy and the nature of the human heart, if you will, as well as what blocks us from being connected to our heart. So I married the two together in what was my first comedy video called How to Be Ultra Spiritual. And at the time, I thought it was just going to be a one-off video. Like I'll make one comedy video and then I'm done with that. But it was super, super satiating to put that out, very creatively fulfilling. It somehow inspired myself. I guess that's narcissistic inspiration. Like, I just inspired myself. I'm so full of me. It definitely got me hungry to do more. It definitely got me curious to walk deeper into the well of creativity that has been inside of me, but I didn't know about until I fished out the first bucket of water in the form of How to Be Ultra Spiritual, that first video.
And have you been surprised by the response to it? Because I have literally seen friends from all across the political and spiritual spectra sharing your videos online, and I'm always so struck by people who, I would think, like, wow, this really resonates with you in totally different ways than it resonates with this other person. What do you feel like about it that's connected with people so deeply?
Yeah, well, first, I am stupidly surprised at how many people can connect with the videos that I put out. Along the way, I'm doing my best to allow my videos to evolve. And part of that is broadening the subject matter of my videos. In the beginning, it was just stuff within the spiritual new age genre. And especially the past 6 months, I've been very, very, I guess, hungry to go beyond just what had become the confines of doing things in the spiritual genre. So, a few weeks ago, I put out a video, How to Be a Millennial. I've done a little bit of stuff around the elections. I did a video on the Standing Rock situation, video of passive aggressive relationship techniques. So things that are, things I think they cover very meaningful subject matter, but it's not within the spiritual genre. So that's been important to me. And that naturally has helped me reach new audiences. But the other part of your question about what do I think it is that allows people to connect with the videos, my assessment of that, my own delusional opinion is I'm showing people what's there that they're unaware of. So if I was distilling what my videos do down to like one bullet point, it's I look under the obvious and I show people what's underneath the obvious. So helping people see the unseen. It's there. It might be things we all do. It might be things we all think. It might be passive aggressive tendencies we all have our version of, but we all act like we don't. We act like it's not true. We try to cover it up. But to me, there is so much relief when we can take the burden off of ourselves of covering up what we do and what we are and be like, yeah, this is part of my shadow. It's kind of part of my ooey gooey human nature. And it is something I do. I don't have to pretend like I don't do it anymore. I get to take that pressure off of me because here's this Yahoo that just gave me permission to be that screwed up, flawed, passive aggressive human being. We get to drink from the cup of communion that says we all do that. We all have that in common. So I think we can all relate to things when someone shows us what's under the obvious. So to me, I think that's part of what has appeal about my videos on sort of a mass scale.
And that really makes me think of the opening of your video on millennials, which is brilliant, by the way. As you know, as people in the millennial world, professionally and personally, we got a huge kick out of it. But even the opening is so brilliant. Like you're talking about, you like people's online personas more than their actual personas. So you just stop hanging out with them in real life. And there is that like underlying truth of that when you look at it, you're like, oh, that's kind of true, because we often hear about it from the other side, right? That social media is this curated presentation of our identities.
Sure.
But I love that you just flipped it around and be like, and sometimes that's a better experience of people than their actual selves.
For sure. I appreciate your appreciation of that.
This made me think, do you know, there's actually been moments where I've had like the opposite experience where like the person in real life, like that I've known them for years, and then, you know, then I see them on Facebook and it's like this distilled version of like all of their really negative opinions or something. And it's so weird. I have to like unfollow them because it's like this opposite experience of who I know in real life. So that's been something too, a flip side. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced that. But.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think it's victimization of self, where people always figure out how to be outraged about something, or they get enraged. They just play the victim. So there's so much more than the victim. But when people are trying to get their emotional needs met as the victim, they can leverage social media and like, well, okay, let me convey myself as just a victim, so that I can get my needs met better. You know, it's dysfunctional, but, you know, just more of the dysfunction. And then, you know, at the opposite end of the spectrum, when we're trying to get our emotional needs met by coming across as like the intact hero, it's like, yeah, then we can just exclusively show only that on social media. It's just as dysfunctional, but it allows us to get our needs met in the name of that dysfunction better. So yeah, it's like, I think there's always two ends of the spectrum, and I think social media is leveraged for both.
And that's a great transition, I think, into how did you get into your emotional healing coaching work? I'm curious what that looks like in your journey there.
Yeah, you know, there's an old saying that says, we teach what we need to learn the most. So I became really motivated to help other people with their emotional healing and to, you know, get into this work as a teacher or a coach. That's what got me in the door. But as soon as I got in the door and started working with like real teachers, real mentors who come from a place of wisdom, not just knowledge, I quickly learned with my humble tail tucked between my legs, holy crap, I need this. I've been so blind to like how I've needed to connect to my own heart, heal old stuff that I've been carrying around that I didn't even know was a thing. I didn't even know I was carrying around. I didn't know I was wounded. So I needed it. And I was too arrogant to acknowledge that I needed it and too defended against vulnerability to feel that I needed it. So I needed to project my need for emotional healing onto other people, create the conscious desire to facilitate it with them in order to trick me into the door of helping thyself.
Would you be willing to share some of the ways in which you experienced your own emotional healing?
Yeah. So let's see, there's a bunch of them. Some of the wounds that I carried into adulthood that I didn't know I was carrying until I started to have my tail humbly tucked between my legs would be when I grew up, there was always stress in the family. It would be my parents are getting divorced. Now they're not getting divorced, not getting divorced. Dad drinking all the time, mom having anxiousness all the time. So that was, I won't necessarily say traumatizing on me, though maybe, but I would say wounding. So a little bit less intense than a trauma, but very wounding. So I disconnected from a lot of my emotions because I didn't feel there was stability around me to support me with my emotions. And this all happening unconsciously. So I did my best to become the stable one. So part of my wounding was betraying myself and my authenticity and what's real inside of me, as in, like, I'm terrified. Mom and dad are getting divorced. This is scarier than I can imagine. So I would betray that wound. I essentially would wound myself to escape my wound while I take on the facade of I'm strong and stable. And in fact, I'm so strong and stable, I'm here to take care of my family. I'm 7, but I'm going to take care of my mom and dad. I'll be the stable one for them. So a lot of my healing has been stepping out of that illusion of stability and getting vulnerable, learning how to say I'm scared. Just yesterday, I was on the phone with my dream coach. She's a dream therapist, helps me work on the dreams I have at night, interpreting some of the beautiful meaning that's in those. And just yesterday, we were looking at a dream and coming to terms with the message is I need to be able to say I'm scared, because I can whine about things. I can pretend to be arrogant enough to have solutions to problems, all as ways to avoid my fearful feelings and to avoid having the consciousness to say, I'm scared right now.
Wow. I thank you so much for your vulnerable and authentic share, even for something that's still kind of new that you're still processing. I mean, I appreciate it so much for my own personal self because I resonate a lot with your childhood experience and have similar wounds. But also, it's so great for people to hear the real process of growing and becoming, and how it's not usually easy, actually. Like,
Sure.
it's like you're really capturing how when you have a dream or a goal or something that you really care about, how much you are ultimately faced with ways in which you have to grow, with limiting beliefs you have to release, all of these things to achieve that goal. It's more than just, I need to get certified, or I need to go to school, or I need to, there's like a lot of deeper stuff, so that you can really get out of your own way and achieve that success or that goal.
100%. I love everything you just said. To me, the message that I heard you say, and I'm going to barf my own words on this, so
cool.
Please forgive me as I pollute what you just said with my own vomit, my own spin. But to me, it is absolutely a reality that we can only achieve our dreams to the degree that we're willing to face the dragon that lives inside of us. Mm-hmm. The idea of, let me have this grandiose, noble-looking experience on the outside of me, achieving my dream, having the business, helping the world. The idea that I can do all that in a big way while avoiding what's inside of me, that's called a fairy tale. Mm-hmm. Welcome to real life. If you want to really have the inner satisfaction of expressing the dream that wants to live through you, then I think we need to be willing to step into the fires that burn within ourselves. And that's facing our own dragons. So if we're not willing to face our own crap, then I think the crap that we're not willing to face inside of us will be reflected in our outer world. So we'll see crap happen to us, and it might be frustration, like, oh, my business, it's not going well. I keep having relationship challenges, or the world always seems screwed up for me, to me, and poor me, Donald Trump this, Donald. So we just see crap around us to the degree that we're avoiding facing our own crap inside. So I think there's a lot to be said about taking the self-responsibility to be the courageous warrior who's willing to have the courage to feel the fear that is real when we face the dragon inside of us. All of our own crap, our gifts, yes. Our wounds, yes. Our fears, yes. I really do believe that we can only have as beautiful of a life on the outside as we're willing to go deep on the inside, in my delusional opinion.
No, I think that's so true. And I really resonate with a related idea, which is that all business problems are just disguised or sometimes thinly veiled personal problems. And for me, for example, one of those would be feeling like I always have to do everything myself. And like, it's not just that like I have to do that. It's like, it's unkind or uncaring of me to ask other people for help because I don't want to burden them, with whatever. But I'm like, that's why we pay people. Like, people want to help, or like robbing them of that opportunity. And I'm wondering, for you, have there been any business challenges along the way that when you look at them, you're like, oh, actually, that was sort of more of a personal problem disguised as a business challenge?
No, is the pretend answer I'd like to have. But absolutely. I mean, to me, you're just, what you said is like, oh, are you just psychically reading me like a book? But a huge one that comes to my mind, in the name of that, the whole being a control freak. Let's see, it was almost exactly a year ago. I was just great honor. Tony Robbins invited me to be his guest at his Unleash the Power Within event in Dallas, Texas. Just freaking mind-blowing experience. Awesome. And during the event, one of the exercises was, I forget the name of it, but it was essentially, you're invited to call yourself out. What do I know I need to do that I'm not doing that's holding me back? So I'm like, oh, okay, crap. I need to hire someone, because in my business, like things had been exploding for me in a beautiful way, great blessing, but there had become a curse with that blessing. There was way more stuff going on than I could possibly handle, way more opportunities coming at me that I could possibly consider. So I was burning the candle at both ends and in the middle, which was just leaving me like I have zero time for play. And I have actually almost no time to do the things that created all these opportunities for me in the first place. Like I was making maybe one video a month. It's like, I don't even have time to make videos because I'm distracted with all these things that are come at me because I make videos. So I wrote down, I need to hire someone. And like, I don't know how to hire someone. I've never done that before. Like, it's like, how do I do that? The reason why I had never hired someone wasn't the money. It's like, I can actually logically see I will make more money if I hire someone, because I can have them do all these time consuming tasks that don't give me a direct return on money. I can do more of the things that actually make me money when I'm not doing all the things that don't make me money. So logically, I knew like, it's just smart to hire someone. But the idea of me burning the candle at both ends and in the middle, even though it was killing me, that allowed me to have control over everything. And I think for a lot of us, including the weirdo named JP, like control is a religion we're all willing to die for to some degree. Like, I'm willing to kill myself and work myself to death as long as it means I'm in control of everything. So the challenge for me was letting go of control. So About a year ago, I hired my executive assistant, Karen. She has just proven to be amazing. And I realized to the degree that I'm willing to experience the fear of letting go of control so that I can receive more of her helping hand, that becomes the degree that I grow. That becomes personally, like, it's a huge rite of passage for me to let go of control. So much personal growth. And that's very reflected professionally. My business grows, my brand grows, my opportunities grow. And probably most importantly, my inner satisfaction with my work grows, because the more I let go of control of the things that aren't in the sweet spot of my heart alignment, the more I get to stay in my heart alignment, doing the projects, doing the tasks that light my heart up. So that's been a huge lesson for me, and a big thing that I've overcome. Still have room to grow with it, but that's been huge for me.
Well, I really appreciate the perspectives that you're sharing. And I'm wondering if there is advice that you would give to other millennials who are on a similar path to finding their fulfillment, finding their success.
Yeah, here's what it would be. In the beginning, I think saying yes to everything works for us. So saying yes to opportunities, that I think that's like in the season of the beginning of our careers, especially like entrepreneurs. And I think many millennials, it's like entrepreneurship is a little bit second nature to us. It's like, yeah, why would I do anything other than that? So I think saying yes works really well for us in the beginning to help us establish our roots. Once our roots are established, and I think, like, note of humbleness, it can take a decade or so for us to legitimately have our roots established, then saying no becomes the word that will serve us even more. So in the beginning, we're saying yes. Something scares us, yes. Okay, it's an opportunity, say yes to that. But then once we have our roots in the ground, I think saying no will serve us well so that we can stay more in our heart alignment space, heart inspired action rather than manic action. And when we're saying no, we're probably in a position where we can have team members and partners around us where their authentic yes, is a yes to what our no is. And that's part of how we can be on an effective team. What lights one person up doesn't light us up. And it's like, awesome. They get to do the things that don't light me up, and I get to do the things that don't light them up. And I know that it came out a little bit rambly, but somehow in there is alleged advice.
Well, one of the things I appreciate about that perspective is so often I think the advice people give to millennials is from a perspective of advice you would give to someone who is at the same stage in their career that you are. And what I loved about your response was that it actually reflected the strategies change depending on where you are in your journey. So I do really appreciate that nuanced perspective. And as we're wrapping up here, I'm wondering, what unique challenges do you feel that members of the millennial generation face? And obviously, I know you lightheartedly hit on several of them in the millennial video. But yeah, what kind of challenges do you feel that the millennials face that are specific to our generation?
I think that's a beautiful question. And I think the speed of change is a huge challenge for honestly any generation. But here in this case, specifically millennials, because I don't think ever before in history has there been change at such a rapid rate. I mean, needless to say, technology, that's like exponentially changing. But beyond technology, the way the world is, it's changing very fast. And I think one of the most fundamental fears of humankind is the fear of change. So here we are sitting on the edge as millennials, looking into the abyss that's constantly changing. And it can be very easy to try to avoid that. We can root into what was, stay attached to the comfort of the familiar, or we can do our best to leave that and embrace the fears and the beauty, honestly, and the fulfillment that comes with change. So honestly, I think embracing change and embracing the fear of change is a big challenge that us as millennials are faced with. And I think honestly, with any challenge, the flip side of that is a great reward.
Could you say a little bit more about the great reward? I'm intrigued.
Yeah. It's like maybe no other generation has been faced with so much challenge of change. And therefore, I don't think any other generation has been faced with the potential reward of change. I think what the reward of change is, speaking in a very general way, because I think it can be very specifically different in different specific circumstances. But I think the reward of change is meaning. And I think it's excitement. It's far more exciting to watch a new movie than it is to watch the same movie for the 20th time. So there's more excitement that comes with change. And I think that really is a great gift. But in the doctrine of maybe what Spider-Man's uncle might say, with a great gift comes a great responsibility. And I think part of the responsibility of the gift of excitement that comes with change is the responsibility knowing that change is it's a scary thing. It's a perpetual adventure into the dark forest of the unknown.
Well, if we needed a title for the podcast, I think Adventure into the Dark Forest of the Unknown is an excellent way to wrap it.
Yeah.
JP, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. Would you mind sharing with our audience where they can find you and your work online?
Yeah, of course. All my social media handles are Awaken with JP. I'm in all the usual places. And I'm always publishing videos on Facebook and YouTube. So those are a couple of my hot spots at Awaken with JP. And Blake and Ivy, you guys are absolutely delightful. And I so appreciate you guys inviting me on to your show.
Yeah, this has been a really great conversation. I feel like we could just talk forever. And this has been great.
Yeah, Ivy, thank you. And Blake, thank you, brother.
For show notes and previous episodes, or to learn more about our coaching and event offerings, visit motivationalmillennial.com. That's millennial, MILLENNIAL. Keep in touch with us at facebook.com/motivationalmillennial.
We'd love to hear from you. Shoot us an email with your thoughts, comments, and suggestions at podcast@motivationalmillennial.com. And tell us who you might like to hear from, or if you think you or anyone you know would be good for the show.
Our theme music was composed and performed by our very own Blake Brandis.
The Motivational Millennial Podcast is edited by Brittany Felix. Have a great week, Motivational Millennials!